It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's edition is December 10th. We're in the double digits for September. Did I say September? December 10th, 2024. And this is A Block. And we started off with this guy by the name of John Combest. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Brad.
You sent me an interesting article about St. Charles County. Is that going to be in the top three by any chance, or is that something that's...
Absolutely not. It's a municipal story that doesn't touch state politics, so it won't be mentioned today.
So that'll be in B Block. Okay. John is an interesting guy for the past 23 years. Never misses one single day. Christmas Day, Easter, Thanksgiving, doesn't matter. His bar mitzvah, it doesn't matter what John is doing because of the fact that he is busy early in the morning putting together this list of all the important stories that you need to know about in the state of Missouri. He sometimes has 2 dozen, 3 dozen, sometimes even 4 dozen stories. But we started off in the morning with this guy right here. His name is...
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start off with...
In third place...
Some very local news, Brad, from a place that you and I are quite familiar with, and many people in the St. Louis area are familiar with, the Riverview Gardens School District. This story is brought to us by Blythe Bernard from the Post-Dispatch. Proposed charter school would be first in the Riverview Gardens School District. The Riverview Gardens School District has been in the spotlight, Brad. It's been under the watchful eye of Missouri education leaders for poor performance going back to the 1990s. Next year, officials in Missouri, education officials, will make a decision on whether or not an independent charter school can open in the Riverview Gardens School District. Now, a few details on this. The woman who's starting it is a woman named Denitria Neal, and she has worked for a charter school that opened in the Normandy School District. She's also worked in the Hazelwood School District. So this school would be called, Brad, the North County Innovative School. It would open with 100 students in preschool through second grade. And then it would add a grade each year, all the way up until the point that it reaches 8th grade, with a total enrollment of 470 students. So the overall goal here, Brad, is to provide parents in the Riverview Gardens School District who aren't happy with the current school district to go to send their kids to an independent charter school. And as you can imagine, Brad, you're probably more familiar with some of these fights than I am. A lot of times public school districts don't like the idea of any sort of independent charter school starting in their area because they feel that it takes resources away from their main school district. So next year, it looks like in this piece by Blythe Bernard, it says that, sorry, I should have it up in front of me right now. State leaders are going to be able to give a yay or nay on this district, I believe, next year. I'll look that up as we discuss it, Brad.
Is it, why are the education leaders always afraid of this? Because is this like competition? It's just like McDonald's being afraid that Burger King is going to build a restaurant across the street? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, it's hard to find an argument against why. Now, I think, and by the way, I should point out, this was in the second paragraph. I overlooked it. The state needs to approve this. So that would be, I believe that would be DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, would need to approve the creation of this charter school in Riverview. And I guess what it is, Brad, is if you're a critic of charter schools, you would point to the fact that they're not always successful. And Blythe Bernard points out here that in the St. Louis region, they have really a mixed record. And she says that more than half of the 35 systems that have opened since 2000 have been shut down for either academic or financial failures. So I'm guessing if you're in a public school district, you make the argument, look, these things, let's go with the system that we have, that we're familiar with, that has been proven in many cases to work. And let's not trust some independent group to come in and educate your kids.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a dumb question. What's the difference between a private school and a charter school? Isn't a charter school somewhat of a private school?
No, absolutely not. Charter schools are taxpayer funded.
So they get, but to a certain extent, the private schools get some funding from the government because they get. I know there's certain things they get that it's like colleges. You know, even though it may be a private college,
they're subsidized in some way, is what you're saying.
Right. They get some kind of government money, or some of them. Most of them do. I know some of them. There's a few of them that brag about the fact that we don't take any government money, so we can do whatever we want. But see. Don't get me going on this whole education thing. I look back and I think to myself, I told you there's this goofy cartoon that someone sent me years ago, and it's interesting. It had like 4 panels to it, and it showed like back then and now, and it showed like pictures, and it showed like people on a horse and buggy, and then it showed somebody like in a Corvette, and then the next one it showed like, a farmer out in the field with a plow and a horse, and then it showed next panel was a big John Deere tractor with like a 20-foot plow on the back of it, and there was another one, and then the final one was it showed an old-timey school picture with the school marm up there in front, pointing to the blackboard, and then it showed present, this exact same thing, kids in a classroom with a teacher in front, but obviously they're all dressed, modern clothes and the whole bit. I think to myself, you know what, that is sort of weird, is that we're doing things essentially the same way. I mean, like you and I, it's been a long time since I've been a student at the Hazelwood High School, okay? I could go to that high school today, and it's probably very little change since I left there when I graduated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know. Maybe some tweaks around the edges in terms of classes or modernization. But you're saying that the style of education is mostly the same.
It's the same stuff. You sit in a classroom and yada, 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 yada. And I think that if you look at this situation, you know what? Hold on a minute. There goes the cough again. Okay, I'm going to send you, if I send you like a 6 or 7 minute video, would you watch this? What it is, it's it's the very beginning of the series. I think it's called Newsroom with Jeff Daniels. You know what I'm talking about? It came out like 5 or 6, 7 years ago.
I'm familiar with the show. I never watched it, but I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Okay, the very first episode is probably, and what's interesting is the very first episode, the first 10 minutes sets the theme for the entire show, okay? And if you watch this, then pretty much, the background, what's going on. He's like a Walter Cronkite kind of guy, very high-end, network news guy, very high profile, and he's invited to talk to a college class, and a professor grills him, and he goes through this list of where the United States is as far as where we rank and all these things, and education, and this is in the world, education is like 42nd. Okay, how can we be like that? And I think even more so, you see the situation coming with all the stuff coming out of Chicago with the teachers wanting, what was that? Well, we talked about that earlier. They want a 20% pay raise every year now or some crazy number like that?
Yeah, it seems pretty reasonable. That's cost of living, Brad. Get with the times.
And they're already making the base salary, I think, is just under 6 figures. I don't know. It's just frustrating to me. And, once again, I don't have young kids anymore. My kids are all adults, and I sometimes, as strange as it may sound, as I get into the winter of my life, as I'm at 89, and I'm 7 years older than Joe Biden, and hopefully I don't say some of the stupid stuff he says. But I worry about our country. I really do. And it's stories like this that bother me. Because, once again, where I grew up, I'm, where Claudine is, I could go like a mile south on Bell Fountain. I'm in the Riverview Gardens School District. It was just on the other side of 270. You know what I'm saying?
I do know. For folks who aren't from the St. Louis area, take 270 north, and then you can get off at either Bell Fountain or Lilac. You bust a right, you head south, and you're in Riverview.
Right.
Brad, I love to hear you talk about the cost of living, and that's in story number 2. Let's get into it.
I knew that, John. That's why I queued you up. Here we go.
Up a notch to number 2.
Well, Brad, a minimum wage increase and paid sick leave for workers is being challenged by business groups. That's right. Folks like the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, the Missouri Restaurant Association, and good old AIM, Associated Industries of Missouri. They are saying, whoa, Proposition A, not so fast. They want a court to strike down the law, Brad, on a very simple pretext. I'm going to put you on the spot, Brad. What was wrong with Proposition A besides everything? What was wrong with the concept of Proposition A, Brad?
I don't know, John. All the propositions to me were flawed. And here we go again already. Like I told you, that report on NPR already, the abortion proposition. There's all sorts of crazy stuff about that. There's.
I'll answer the question for you, Brad. In general, the Missouri Constitution says that ballot issues can only be focused on one.
That's right.
Count them, one topic. Yeah.
One topic.
So the business groups are saying that you can't put both a minimum wage hike and forced mandated sick leave in the same vote. And furthermore, the business groups say that, businesses that are exempt from this, Brad, include, or I should say entities that are exempt, include government workers and folks who work for businesses that bring in less than $500,000 a year in revenue. The business groups say that language was not spelled out clearly. In other words, they say that some folks probably went into the ballot box, and when they voted, it wasn't clear that if you work for a company that makes less than $500,000 a year, you wouldn't get this minimum wage increase. You wouldn't get this mandated sick time. So business groups are challenging this, Brad, and they want the entire thing thrown out.
Yesterday, I think it was, and this is not about that one, but this is about the abortion proposition. And it was interesting. I think it was, once again, I drive along. Sometimes I'm in a trance when I'm driving. I'm concentrating the road, if you can believe it or not. But I believe it was on 97.1. They were talking about the fact, and I believe it was the midday lady who was talking about the fact that how could someone go into the polling to the polls back in November and vote for Donald Trump and vote for abortion? And it was Annie Fry who was saying, how is that possible? And I know this is not necessarily what you're talking about, but the Proposition A, but doesn't that show you that people in Missouri are not, blind, and that they can pick and choose, and you can say you want Donald Trump to be president, but at the same point in time you want to be able to have women have abortions? I mean, are they two diametrically opposed issues that if you're for one, you can't be for the other? You know what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying, and I think that was, as you know, Brad, for the first month after the election, that's been the top topic of folks who've drilled down deeply into it, whether it's Jason Rosenbaum or Scott Fawn, have talked about that very question, Brad. And I think the takeaway is Missouri voters aren't extremely right-wing, and they're not progressive. And they might want to pick and choose. They might want to send Republicans to represent them in D.C. and in Missouri. And then they might want stuff that's a little bit more, I guess you could call it laissez-faire in terms of government policy.
But I say that's a good thing. I say that's a good thing in the respect that you don't have the robots. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to vote. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I don't know. You're sounding like a Kino over there, Brad. You're sounding like an AI figure, which is the central story before we start weaving for another 5 minutes in story number one.
John always compliments me.
The number one.
Strange bedfellows. Eric Schmitt and Elizabeth Warren. Yes, Pocahontas herself. Eric Schmitt and Elizabeth Warren teaming up on a bill that addresses AI. You hear a lot about AI. You listen to any company's earnings call, they're all using AI. This story is brought to us by Joe Holloman from the Post-Dispatch. Missouri's Eric Schmitt, part of a left-right effort to stop big tech from monopolizing AI. Now, Brad, I drilled down a little bit into this. I clicked on a few of the links that he has here, and I looked at a source that he links to called Defense Scoop that talks about the contracting behind this. And in general, from what I gather, Brad, Schmitt and Warren want to make sure that smaller companies that are involved in cloud computing and in AI have a more equitable opportunity to compete for defense contracts. As I read it, it ensures that through some of the procurement process that these big companies, let's just throw out Microsoft can't just bundle all of their offers to do this government work. And the phrase that was used in the press releases was elbow out, and elbow out smaller competitors. In other words, when government puts these individual pieces up for bid, it gives smaller companies a better chance to compete against the Microsofts of the world. So it sounds like a boring procurement and supply chain issue, but I think really it would give smaller companies a mandated opportunity to be able to compete against the Microsofts and other tech giants of the world. So a lot of it, Brad, when I read the Defense Scoop piece, is way over my head as it relates to AI and computing. But folks can check it out today. And as always, I have a paywall-free link to the story.
John, it's a losing battle. I mean, it's just a losing battle. I mean, Eric Schmitt is well-meaning, but it's not going to go anywhere because of the fact that the big guys are going to get bigger and the small guys are going to struggle. That's the way it is. That's life in the big city nowadays, I mean,
okay, sure.
You don't agree with me?
I haven't gotten any AI contracts for defense opportunities. I would say that a small company deserves, a right to compete against the big boys. And I would say smaller companies that have failed or that don't execute and don't take advantage of their opportunities probably sit around and complain about the fact that it's not fair.
Well, but see, the problem is things are stacked against you. Okay, like let's say construction. Okay. Let's say that you wanted to compete against Alberici or any of the big boys in the construction, and you want to bid on, let's say, like, for example, what's going on right now, the start of the new I-70 corridor between St. Louis and Kansas City. They're already going to do major changes, and they're bidding it like in sections, okay? You, as a small guy, let's say it's John Combest Construction, Inc., and you bid on that contract, you know why you're never going to get that contract?
Yeah, because I don't have the means to do it, and it would be doing the taxpayers a disservice to give a contract to a company that can't actually execute.
No, because
all the caterwauling from whiny little small companies, we can't compete. The deck is stacked against us. Go to hell.
No.
Get better, get bigger. Compete on contracts you can actually win. No. I don't want MoDOT giving a road contract to John Combest Construction. Give it to Alberici because they actually have the resources. And let the piddly little piss ants complain about the fact that they can't get a contract.
No, but
sit and drown in your own tears.
You're missing a big part of this. You know what the major problem with that is? And let's say, and once again, Alberici once upon a time was a small company. Most of these companies they were small. I still remember reading the story about Mr. Alberici on Saturday. He used to go to their yard where they had all the concrete forms, and he'd pull the nails out of the 2x4s to be able to reuse them.
What a hero. What was your point, Brad?
They can't get a bond.
Oh, well, it sucks to be them.
Well,
maybe they should do piddly little municipal road projects until they get bigger.
John is a fan of the small businessman. John is a fan. You can tell
I'm a fan of people. Brad, you are, to your credit, someone who encourages people to work hard and put their head down and actually execute. So why don't they work harder and get better? And then as they grow and get bigger, who's saying they can't partner and be a subcontractor with Alberici?
No, I get what you're saying, John, but the problem on that is the government has set the rules, which makes it impossible for the small guys to bid on things.
That's what Eric Schmitt is trying to fix here, right?
But he's never.
And you just said, good luck to him, but it's not going to happen.
He's never going to get it done because of the fact that like, let's take some of the smaller computer companies in St. Louis. Okay, you got Acropolis, you've got ThrottleNet, companies like that. Okay. There's no way they can compete with Microsoft or the big boy that a lot of people don't even realize is Amazon, AWS, Amazon Web Services. They're the big dog that nobody really knows about. And it's amazing how many people think of, like, when they think of the web, they think of Microsoft, they think of Apple and companies like that. But the big dog in the room is Amazon Web Services, and you can't compete with them. You just can't. Now, the crazy thing on that was, once upon a time, I can still remember taking a plane trip, believe it or not, a business trip when I was in Oklahoma City, flying back and reading a story about this crazy guy, Jeff Bezos, who started selling books out of his garage in his house. And I'm thinking to myself, God, now he's with Supermodel on a 300-foot yacht, trolling around the Mediterranean and stuff like that. So, the little guy can win, but I say the deal with Eric Schmitt, I say it's window dressing because nothing's ever going to happen. It's just going to stay the way it is.
Well, we might agree to disagree. I think we can all agree that the greatest way to start an empire like Jeff Bezos is to come up with a domain name that focuses on local weather.
John, here we go again. John's going to make fun of me.
Hey, for anybody that's looking forward to doing their taxes in the spring, follow the Brad Hildebrand model, and you can buy Brad's course called Tax Write-Offs for Fun and Profit. So you start a bunch of domains that you'll never follow through on, and then you go to your accountant, and in the spring, you get to write off all of your profits. You can go to washmoweather.com and westplexweather.com, by the way.
I compliment John all the time, and off the air, I talk about how I'm so blessed to have John on a show with me because he's this interesting person that everybody knows, and he has this incredible work ethic. And we get on the air, and what does John do? He just makes fun of me all morning long.
No, I praise you, Brad. People should buy your course. Why would anybody open the weather app that's on everyone's phone when they could enter a domain name and look at weather for the entire Westplex? Not Cottleville, not Garden Prairie, but the overall Westplex. I went there this weekend, Brad.
Once again, John's making fun of me. Okay, we have to move on.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?